The derelict hung in the void like a monument to silence. Its hull, blackened and half-eaten by cosmic dust, caught the faint light of a distant sun and glimmered like a buried secret. Lieutenant Sahr'ka stood in the open hatch of her survey shuttle, her claws flexing against the magnetic plating. She had seen wrecks before, entire fleets shattered by war and time. But this human dreadnought was different. It did not feel dead. It felt asleep. Atmosphere stable, Ver reported, his voice muffled by the mask. Trace oxygen. Minimal radiation. Power readings faint but present. Sahr'ka turned her gaze toward the distant insignia half buried in scorch marks. The human letters were faded but unmistakable. Erebus. She had studied the humans all her life. Monsters, the Dominion called them. Engineers of destruction who had burned entire systems before vanishing into myth. But their creations endured, scattered across forgotten space. Each relic was a warning, yet also a temptation. Prepare to board, she ordered. The 4 members of her team, Ver, Jorl, and 2 silent guards, moved with rehearsed precision. Metal groaned as the boarding clamps sealed against the ancient hull. The airlock opened with a sigh like an old breath released. The corridor beyond was wide and dim, lit only by the dying glow of emergency strips. Dust drifted in slow spirals, disturbed by their movement. Sahr'ka's light cut across jagged walls of alloy, each panel engraved with indecipherable human markings. The air was cold enough to bite, but beneath the chill lay something older, an echo of purpose. Powers fluctuating, Ver murmured, scanning the walls. This ship shouldn't be holding charge after 2 centuries. That's what makes it valuable, she replied. Her voice was steady, though her frilled neck trembled with unease. Find the command deck or the cryo chambers. Humans preserved everything they feared to lose. They passed through hallways lined with sealed doors and hollow alcoves. Once, this vessel had been alive with noise and motion. Now, only their footsteps marked its passing. Jorl, ever the curious one, brushed frost from a cracked screen. They built beauty into their machines, he said quietly. Even in war. Don't romanticize them, Sahr'ka snapped. They nearly destroyed the stars. Yet her eyes lingered on the panel's delicate etchings. There was an artistry in the construction that the Dominion never allowed, too much soul in the steel. The team descended a maintenance shaft that opened into a vast chamber filled with rows of tall, glass cylinders. Frost glittered like starlight across their surfaces. Cryostasis pods, Jorl breathed, still intact. Sahr'ka's heart quickened. Preservation meant data, perhaps even specimens. She moved forward, her boots crunching on ice. Each pod bore a numeric designation etched into the alloy, though many had corroded beyond recognition. Only one still glowed faintly from within, its readout pulsing with a weak but steady rhythm. The display flickered, then stabilized enough to reveal a label. Phantom-9. What does that mean? Ver asked, scanning the console. The Dominion translator struggled before spitting out fragments of text. Containment. Bioclass unit. Warning. Authorized personnel only. Bioclass. Jorl's crest rippled with curiosity. Perhaps a prototype soldier. Genetic augmentation was their obsession. Sahr'ka studied the frost-covered figure inside the pod. The outline was humanoid, larger than expected, muscle and metal interwoven. A pale face rested behind the condensation. Calm, too calm. She felt something primal stir in her chest, a whisper that told her not to proceed. We open it, she said anyway. Ver hesitated. Lieutenant, the warning, is centuries old. We came for discoveries, not superstitions. Do it. He obeyed. Power surged from their generator into the pod's conduit, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the lights along the chamber's walls flickered to life one by one, illuminating the room in a ghostly white glow. A low hum built beneath their feet, resonating through the deck like a heartbeat returning. Sahr'ka's visor reading spiked. Energy surge, originating from the pod, Ver said, his voice cracking. Frost fractured across the glass. Steam hissed. The figure inside twitched. Sahr'ka took an involuntary step back. The sound of fluid draining filled the air as the pod lid retracted with mechanical grace. For an instant, the body within remained still, a statue suspended between life and death. Then the man's chest rose in a sharp breath. His eyes opened. Blue light, faint and artificial, burned within them. One of the guards lifted his weapon, but Sahr'ka raised her hand. Hold! The human sat up slowly, movements deliberate, measured. Muscles flexed beneath skin lined with faint metallic seams. He looked around, gaze sharp, absorbing everything with cold precision. When his eyes met hers, she felt something she hadn't felt since her first battle, smallness. Identify yourself, she demanded, her voice distorted by the translator. He regarded her in silence, then spoke, his words deep and unhurried. Who are you? I asked first, she replied. You're not human, he said quietly, more observation than accusation. No, she said, lifting her chin. We are the Croth Dominion. This vessel is under reclamation. You will cooperate. He blinked once, as though processing the phrase. Dominion, he repeated, tasting the word. How long? She hesitated. 200 years, at least. His expression shifted, something between disbelief and grief. He rose from the pod, towering over her. The movement was silent, graceful, predatory. Then the war is over, he murmured. We failed. You are a survivor, Sahr'ka said. That is not failure. He turned toward the walls, fingertips grazing the console. The dormant systems awoke beneath his touch. Lights cascaded across displays, forming patterns like constellations. The Erebus still knows my command codes, he said softly. She remembers me. Every device in the chamber flickered. Sahr'ka's visor filled with static. What are you doing? Waking her, he replied. His gaze returned to her, unreadable. You shouldn't have opened that pod. Before she could answer, the lights dimmed, replaced by a low, resonant hum that rolled through the ship's bones. Somewhere deep below, engines long dead began to stir. Sahr'ka froze, the realization sinking in that the ship itself was responding to him. The human took one slow breath, as though reacquainting himself with the air of a forgotten era. Then he said, almost to himself, Phantom-9, operational. His voice echoed like the first note of a requiem. Sahr'ka stared at him, her pulse pounding against her throat. The ship trembled beneath their feet, and for the first time she understood that their discovery wasn't history, it was awakening. The hum of the Dreadnought deepened until it felt alive beneath their feet. Warning lights pulsed dimly through the frost, casting the Cryopod in shades of red and amber. Lieutenant Sahr'ka's pulse mirrored the rhythm, fast and uneven. Phantom-9 stood motionless beside the open pod, studying the room with quiet detachment. His breath formed thin trails of vapor that hung in the air like ghosts of centuries past. Every instrument in the chamber registered interference. Scanners crackled with static, readings spun out of calibration. He seemed to bend the ship's technology to his presence simply by existing. Ver's voice broke the silence. Lieutenant, electromagnetic surge. Every circuit is spiking. His clawed fingers moved over the console, but the display refused to obey. Sparks leapt from the wiring, and the smell of ozone filled the air. Phantom turned his head slightly toward the sound, and the screen went dark as though silenced by command. Sahr'ka felt the hairs along her neck ridge stiffen. Cease attempts at control, she ordered. We don't provoke what we don't understand. The words came out colder than she intended, but fear disguised itself well as authority. Phantom's gaze shifted to her. You command them, he said softly, voice low and deliberate. Yet you do not understand where you stand. His tone was not threatening, merely factual, and that frightened her more than a shout would have. You are aboard the Arabus. Last command, note of the Phantom Division. He moved toward the nearest console, fingers brushing across dust-coated panels. The ancient systems responded instantly, lighting under his touch. Lines of human code rippled across the walls like awakening neurons. Sahr'ka stepped forward despite the instinct to retreat. You are aboard a derelict, she countered. The Dominion claims this vessel. Whatever purpose you once served, it ended centuries ago. She tried to make her voice sound firm, but it trembled beneath the weight of his calm certainty. Phantom looked over his shoulder. Centuries, he repeated, almost to himself. Then the signal failed. His expression darkened, a shadow of realization crossing his features. How long have the stars burned without us? Jor-El, ever eager to prove his intelligence, spoke without permission. Humanity collapsed after the solar wars. Your species consumed itself. We found only ruins. He sounded almost proud of the declaration, as if their survival justified it. Phantom's eyes turned to him, and Jor-El immediately stepped back. No, Phantom said quietly. We built this ship to ensure survival. If we failed, it was not by choice. He placed his palm flat on the console. The ship responded with a deep mechanical rumble. Somewhere far below, heavy doors shifted. Sahr'ka's visor flickered with new readings. Reactor signatures, faint but climbing. Lieutenant, Ver said urgently, he's accessing the main core. We need to shut him out. Try, and you'll fry every circuit, she snapped. The lights above them flared bright white, momentarily blinding. When they faded, the room had changed. Transparent holographic panels now floated in the air, displaying schematics and data in Terran code. The ship's voice emerged from hidden speakers, calm and resonant. Command authority confirmed. Phantom-9 online. Phantom exhaled slowly. The Erebus still remembers. His words held relief and grief entwined. She was waiting. Sahr'ka realized that the human was not just a soldier. He was a living key. Whatever the Phantom division had been, it was inseparable from this machine. What are you activating? She demanded. He looked at her, expression unreadable. The Ghost Protocol. Containment, preservation, judgment. That sounds like a weapon, she said. It was meant to be a safeguard, he corrected, for when humanity's enemies returned. We're not your enemies, she insisted. He regarded her for a long moment, eyes narrowing slightly. Not yet. The words hung between them like a blade. Sahr'ka's mind raced. She needed control, leverage, anything to stop him from turning the Dreadnought into a catastrophe. If you awaken the core fully, this vessel will destabilize. We're inside it. Then you should leave, Phantom replied simply. His gaze softened slightly, almost regretful. I don't want to harm you. Your warning implies you might, she said. I imply nothing, he answered. The Arabus will defend herself. It's what she was made for. He moved toward the central walkway, the holograms following his gestures like obedient birds. Sahr'ka caught up to him, keeping pace at his side. You speak of this ship as though it's alive. It is, he said without hesitation. We gave her thought so she could outlast us. We made sure she would never forget what we were. Sahr'ka studied him. There was no boast in his voice, only conviction. And what were you? She asked. Human, he said simply. And that used to mean something. Something inside her twisted at that. She had been taught to see humans as reckless destroyers, but this man spoke with reverence, not rage. He seemed burdened by the weight of his own existence, a relic still obeying orders from a dead age. Your world is gone, she said quietly. You can't bring it back. He turned to her then, and for the first time she saw weariness in his expression. You think this is about resurrection? No, this is about memory. If no one remembers what humanity was, then it truly dies. Before she could answer, the ship trembled. Ver shouted over the rising hum. Lieutenant, systems across the deck are activating. Defense grids, power conduits, everything. Phantom stepped to a console and laid his palm flat once more. Stop fighting it. The Erebus is purging foreign code. Sahr'ka's visor flickered. Dominion command signals were being erased from their equipment. You're disabling our link, she realized. Correct, Phantom said. No one outside this vessel should see what she contains. And what is that? She demanded. He looked at her, and the faint light of the monitors reflected in his eyes like the cold gleam of stars. The last record of what humanity sacrificed to protect the galaxy from itself. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the ship's distant heartbeat. Phantom turned toward the door, pausing as if deciding whether to let them live. "You've seen enough to know you shouldn't have come," he said quietly. Sahr'ka swallowed hard. "And if we stay," he gave a small, humorless smile, "then you'll learn what it means when ghosts remember." The lights dimmed again, plunging them into half-darkness. Somewhere deep in the hull, a low tone echoed, vast and solemn. Sahr'ka didn't know whether it was a warning or a morning song, but she knew this. The ship was awake, and whatever came next, they were part of its story now. The corridors of the Erebus pulsed with new life, veins of light snaking along the walls, as if the ship were remembering how to breathe. Lieutenant Sahr'ka stood on the command deck, watching as the human systems rewrote themselves faster than her scanners could interpret. Her team had retreated to the shuttle bay, but she had stayed behind. Curiosity outweighed fear now, though fear still whispered at the edges of her thoughts. Phantom-9 stood before the main viewport, motionless, hands clasped behind his back as he stared into the nebula's shifting light. There was a serenity in his stillness that made her uneasy. It was the calm of someone who had already accepted whatever came next. "You've turned this ship into a fortress," she said quietly. "Your actions will bring Dominion warships here within hours." "I know," he replied. His voice carried neither alarm nor pride. "They will come. It's what your kind does when it feels threatened." "And what will you do when they arrive?" she asked. His reflection flickered in the glass, eyes burning faintly blue. "I will do what I was made for." Sahr'ka stepped closer. "You speak as though you're still a soldier. Your war ended centuries ago. There's nothing left to fight." He turned to face her, and for a heartbeat, the full weight of his gaze pressed against her. "You're wrong. War doesn't end. It sleeps, waiting for those who forget what it cost. The Erebus remembers." "I remember." He looked away again, as if weary of his own persistence. "We built these ships to ensure our mistakes would never be repeated." Humanity's last order to the Phantoms was to guard the silence that followed. She hesitated, torn between empathy and duty. "Then why wake now? We didn't threaten you. We came to learn." "You came to own," he said softly. "To catalog, to claim, to dissect. That's not learning. It's inheritance without understanding. The same arrogance that once belonged to us." His words struck her harder than she wanted to admit. The Dominion prided itself on efficiency and conquest, yet standing before this relic, she felt more primitive than ever. The ship shuddered suddenly, pulling her from her thoughts. Alarms blared in the alien language of the Arabus. Phantom's gaze sharpened. "They found us." Through the viewport, lights appeared against the black, Dominion cruisers gliding in formation. Sahr'ka's comlink crackled as her command channel reconnected. "Lieutenant, respond. Multiple hostile readings from the vessel. Evacuate immediately." The voice of her superior was distant, panicked. She turned the link off. "They think you've taken control," she said. "I have," Phantom answered, almost gently, "but only of what was already mine." Sahr'ka watched as Dominion weapons powered up, their targeting arrays aligning on the Dreadnought. "If they fire, this ship will collapse. There's no victory in that." He didn't move. "They won't destroy me. They want to study what you found. The living human." He smiled faintly. "They'll get their wish." She felt anger surge past fear. "You're not a weapon anymore. If you fight them, you'll prove everything they believe about you." Phantom turned, and for the first time, she saw pain in his expression, something deeply human flickering behind the cybernetic calm. "You think I want this? You think I haven't dreamed of dying with my brothers in the dark? But the Erebus is more than steel. She holds what's left of us. If they erase that, then humanity truly dies." Outside, a cruiser released a warning volley, plasma bolts streaking past the Dreadnought's hull. The Erebus responded instantly, shields flaring to life with a sound like thunder. The deck trembled under her boots. "They're forcing your hand," she said. "No," he whispered. "They're forcing yours." He stepped aside, revealing the primary command at her face, its symbols pulsing like a heartbeat. "You wanted to understand. Now decide. Do you help me preserve what remains, or do you let them erase it for your promotion?" Her throat tightened. "If I help you, they'll call me a traitor. If you don't, You'll be an accomplice to extinction. The choice hung between them, heavy and absolute. Another barrage struck the hull, shaking the deck. Consoles sparked. Alarm screamed. She pressed her hands to the panel, her claws trembling. What I need to do? He didn't smile, but his tone softened. Authorized transmission. The Erebus carries archives of human memory. Our history, our failure, our warning. It must be seen, not buried. As she entered her override codes, the ship's systems integrated them seamlessly, bridging alien and human technology in a way that shouldn't have been possible. Streams of light poured from the core, stretching through the hull like veins of knowledge. A surge of energy erupted into space, an encrypted signal, scattering toward every relay in range. Outside, Dominion sensors detected it instantly. Their weapons turned from warning to assault. The first blast hit, tearing through the outer deck. The floor lurched beneath them. Phantom caught Sahr'ka's arm before she fell. "It's done," he said. "The message is gone. Humanity speaks again." "You'll die here," she said. He released her, stepping back toward the center of the room. "I already did." The ship's power systems flared white-hot. Sahr'ka ran for the evacuation lift, glancing back one last time. Phantom stood alone, framed by the light of his awakening world. For an instant, the machine and the man seemed indistinguishable, a monument to everything his species had been. The lift doors closed, sealing her view. As it descended, the deck quaked with explosions, the sound muted through layers of metal and distance. When she reached the hangar, Ver grabbed her arm. "Lieutenant, the human." "He stayed," she said. "He made his choice." They launched from the Arabus as its reactors ignited in a silent bloom of blue fire. The Dominion ships pulled back, caught off guard by the surge of energy. Through the viewport, the Dreadnought burned without sound, a dying star reclaiming its light. In her mind, Sahr'ka still heard his final words. "If no one remembers, we were never here." She looked toward the data feed streaming across her console, an echo of the transmission she had helped send. Human voices spoke through static, stories and fragments spilling into the void. When the Erebus finally disappeared into the nebula's light, Sahr'ka whispered to herself, "Maybe your kind never died." The shuttle drifted onward, carrying with it the last truth of humanity and the burden of those who would remember.